Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a massive library haul. If you saw the thumbnail, there was a lot of books on that thumbnail, but that wasn't all of them because there's too many for me to hold up. There's 23 books in total that I have out of the library. I actually have more than 23 books out of the library at the moment, but these are the ones I've not yet read. I have a few that I have read, which I'll be talking about in a wrap-up soon. So, to put this into context, my main goal for this year in terms of reading was to read from my TBR shelves. Now, that has kind of gone out the window lately. But I don't feel too bad about it because I did a massive try a chapter a few months ago, which I'll link down below, where I tried a chapter of about 60 odd books from my physical TBR. And as a result of that, I unhauled a lot of books. So when I look at my TBR shelves now, which are these ones here, I don't feel too bad about it. I feel quite calm when I look at these shelves. There even is some space at the top. I don't want to brag, but I do have some space on my shelves. Whereas previously I would look at my shelves and there'd be books that would be there and I'd be like, why are you still here? You've been there for 5 years. Why are you hanging around? So now I've cleared out a lot of the stuff I don't really want to read. So I feel much better about my TBR shelves. But I've kind of now gone to the other extreme of just going absolutely crazy in the library. I've joined another library, so I'm now a member of 3 libraries. These books come from all 3 of those libraries. There is a lot of new releases at the moment that I want to read, and so some of these are new releases. I was first in the queue, I think, for most, if not all of them, which is good, but it does mean I now have library panic. That feeling when you've got too many library books out, you don't know how you're going to read them all. And I think 4 of them have a reserve on, so I need to read 4 of them in the next 3 weeks, which is perfectly doable. But I also have a book club book I need to read, and yeah, I'm slightly panicking, but it's fine, so we'll go through what I've got, and maybe you can tell me if there's any you think I should prioritise if you've read them and think that they're really, really good. So, let's start with some of these, shall we? This first lot of new releases, which I'm very excited about. We'll start with Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I was lulled into a false sense of security on my library app because it said I was ordering a paperback and it is a hardback, which I'm a bit sad about because I much prefer paperbacks, but anyway, it's quite nice. It has black sprayed edges and it is signed by the author. So I've read a few Paul Tremblays. My favourite that I've read so far is The Cabin at the End of the World. I thought that was excellent. I've read a couple of others and some of them I've not liked as much, but I do think Paul Tremblay, even the ones I haven't liked, I've still thought they were kind of good books. I do think he's a really interesting horror writer. I think this one is quite disturbing from what I've heard. So, we opened in summer '93 with a group of young filmmakers who spent 4 weeks making Horror Movie, which is a disturbing art house horror film. Only 3 of the film scenes were ever released to the public, and the film has taken on some sort of mythic renown, is what it says. Then decades later, there's a Hollywood remake of the film. Only one of the original cast is still alive. And I think we're going to find out more about what happened in this film. Some of it is told in like script format. It makes, you won't be able to hear that, I don't think. When you flick through it makes a weird noise. I think it's because there's sprayed edges. It's slightly annoying. But anyway, I'm quite excited for that one. Next we have Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. I love Akwaeke Emezi. So this one, I think, is, I don't know if it has a slight thriller edge to it. It follows 5 people over the course of a weekend which will brutally upend all of their lives. I really like books that have quite a short focus in terms of time. So yeah, I think it's set in Lagos, following this group of friends, and it says, pulled into a whirlwind descent through the city's corrupt and glittering underworld, they're all looking for a way out, fueled by a desperate need to escape the threat that looms over them. So excited for that one. The next one is The Safe Keep by Jarl van der Wooden, who I think is from the Netherlands. I don't know if this is translated or was written in English. I don't think it's translated. This has really like pretty end papers as well. So the Safekeep, the reason I wanted to read this is because I heard Mercedes, I'll link Mercedes' channel down below, talk about this as an anticipated read, and Mercedes said that it was getting compared to Sarah Waters. So of course I wanted to read it. So this is set 15 years after the Second World War, set in the Netherlands in a rural area, and following a small group of characters. So we have Isabel, who lives alone in her late mother's country home, and her brother Louis delivers his graceless new girlfriend Eva to Isabel's doorstep. And then things start to unravel. Neither Eva nor the house are what they seem. So I am intrigued for that. The next one is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. So Peter Swanson, I have really liked some of his books, and some of his books I thought were pretty rubbish. But I do still keep picking them up on the hope that this will be a good one. So let me tell you what it's about, and then I have a question. If anyone's read this, you might be able to answer. So this is about Martha, who is a quiet librarian, and she has a whirlwind romance with someone called Alan and gets married. And then she starts to think that maybe all is not what it seems. And she turns to an old friend, Lily, who's going to help her out in some way. Now, I think one of the characters in this book, Lily, has been in previous books by Peter Swanson. And I know there's one book I haven't read by him, which was... So The Kind Worth Killing I've read. Whatever was the sequel to that one I haven't read. And so I think there's a character in this one. So I don't know if I need to read that second book before reading this or not. If anyone knows, let me know. Next is not a new release, but this is a book that my library's only just got in. So there is a queue for it. Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. I very much like this bright front cover. Would you kill for a good story? So it's about Roach, who is a bookseller, loner and true crime fanatic, and she has no interest in making friends. That is until Laura joins her bookshop. I think Laura sounds like sort of a very different character to Roach. And then it says, curiosity blossoms into morbid obsession. Roach becomes determined to be part of Laura's story, whether Laura wants her to or not. I do really enjoy books about obsession, so we'll give that a go. And then this next one is my most highly anticipated release of the year, and it's Private Rights by Julia Armfield. I'm so excited for this. I loved Salt Slough, the short story collection, and I loved Our Wives Under the Sea. So I don't even know what this is about. So it's about three sisters. I think it's a bit of a nod to King Lear. I'm not sure to what extent. It says it's a breathtaking and ambitious novel that deftly weaves together our fragile present and a possible future that hovers just out of sight. I'm super excited. I love Julia Armfield's writing. I love how she does that sort of quiet, understated, creeping, queer horror. It's just my absolute favourite, so I'm very excited for that one. This next one is a book that I asked my library to purchase because I heard Mercedes talk about this as a recommendation, and Mercedes compared it to I Have Some Questions For You by Rebecca Mackay, which was one of my favourite books that I read last year, and this is The Damages by Genevieve Scott. So I think we have two timelines. So we have 1998 on a university campus in Ontario, and 18-year-old Roz's roommate Megan goes missing. And Roz is blamed for not keeping a closer eye on Megan, and the incident casts a shadow over the next 2 decades of her life. And then we have in 2020, Roz's former partner Lucas is accused of a sexual assault, which brings new details of an old story to light and makes Roz sort of question everything. So it does sound like it has some plot-wise, certainly some similarities too. I have some questions for you, and I think it'll be an interesting examination of, I guess, the 1990s in terms of things that were accepted and shouldn't have been. So looking forward to that one. This one is one I've actually already started. I am on page 72, Appointment with Yesterday by Celia Fremlin. I have read 2 books by Celia Fremlin over the last year or so. I think Faber are republishing a number of her books. This was first published in the 70s, and there's a quote on the front that calls Celia Fremlin Britain's Patricia Highsmith. So the ones I read were Uncle Paul and The Long Shadow. This one is about Millie, although that's not her real name. We don't know what her real name is. Millie is a young woman who is escaping her old life, and we don't know her real name. We sort of slowly are becoming aware of the things that she has escaped from. But yeah, I really like Celia Fremlin's writing. I think the comparison to Patricia Highsmith is probably a fair one. But I'd say Celia Fremlin is slightly more on the slightly less serious side of her books, even though they do have serious stuff in them. But yeah, so that is going well so far. Still more to go. We have Breakdown by Cathy Sweeney. This was a random library pick from the display at the front. I really like this cover. I think it was released this year, 2024. Mothers are not supposed to go on road trips. So one winter morning on an ordinary day in Dublin, an ordinary middle-class woman wakes up in her ordinary home. And without thinking about it, she walks out the front door and never comes back, leaving her husband and children behind. And it's about her travels then and what she sort of faces up to. It is told in, I don't know how to describe it. It's not vignettes, but it's heading towards that way, and the writing is a little sparse. So yeah, when I was flicking through it in the library, I was just really intrigued. So I'm going to give that a go. The next one is a book that, to be honest, I'm not super keen on reading, but this is what I'm reading for my library book club. And it's All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, which is longer than I realised. This is like, how long is this? 500 pages. I've never been remotely compelled to pick this book up, even though, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it's about, so let us find out. Married law, blind since the age of 6, set in Paris. Their father works in the Museum of Natural History, blah, blah, blah. They take refuge when the Nazis invade Paris. And then we have Werner, who's a German orphan destined to labour in the mines until a broken radio fills his life with possibility and brings him to the notice of the Hitler Youth. It illuminates the ways against all odds people try to be good to one another. I'm not super keen on war books, but I will give it a go. It won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and the New York Times did that poll recently. So they did a poll asking sort of authors and people in the publishing industry of their favourite books of the 21st century, and they published the top 100 books. And then a couple of days later they did a poll for their readers, and so members of the public submitted what they thought were their favourite or the best books of the 21st century, and this book came second. So I don't know if that bodes well or not, but I will give it a go. If you've read and really enjoyed this, please let me know and give me some encouragement to want to pick this up. This next one is another one that I picked up randomly from the library display. I've never heard of this before. This is My Brother Michael by Mary Stewart. I really like this cover, and it just sounded interesting to me. I'll read the blurb. Nothing ever happens to me, so begins Camilla Haven's letter home during her quiet holiday in Athens. But when a stranger begs her to drive a car to Delphi, swearing it is a matter of life and death, Camilla impulsively takes the opportunity she's been offered. Before long, she is caught up in a whirlwind of intrigue, deceit and murder. as she spins along the dusty Greek roads in a race against time to solve a 14-year-old mystery. So it sounds like it could be my kind of thing. When was this first published? In the 50s? Yeah, 59. So intrigued for that one. The final book from my local library is The Last Passenger by Will Deans. This is a thriller novel. The reason I wanted to read this is because I've heard it has a twist. I don't know if it's a good twist, but I think it's a big twist. And it happens partway through the book. So it's sort of been on my radar for a while as one I want to pick up, because basically if anyone tells me a book has a big twist, I will want to read it. But then someone in my book club had read this for another book club that she was in. Well, she didn't read it, she DNF'd it and skipped to see what the twists were. But anyway, but I still want to read it and just see what it's about. It's set at sea on a cruise ship, an abandoned cruise ship in the mid-Atlantic, and there is just one person, Kaz, who is left on board. She wakes up to discover everyone else on board has disappeared, and that's just the beginning. So I'm intrigued. I think I have DNF'd a Will Dean book before, but I will give that a go. So those are books from my local library. So I joined another library recently. So I live in Sefton, which is an area to the north of Liverpool. So my address is Liverpool address, but I don't live in the Liverpool City Council area. So I belong to Sefton Libraries. But I thought, why not join the Liverpool Council Libraries? Because there's a big library in town in Liverpool. And yeah, I thought, why not? My initial thought was that I would join the library really just to use it for its electronic services, so Libby or BorrowBox or whatever. And then when I signed up, I was like, oh, I'll just browse, I'll just have a look in the library. I'm not going to get anything. And of course I got stuff. So I've done that a couple of times now. But the shelf I browse, sorry about that, I just dropped a book. But the shelf I've been browsing when I go to Liverpool Library is the horror shelf. So my local library doesn't have a horror shelf. It has crime, sci-fi, I think it even has a western shelf. But it doesn't have a horror shelf. So the horror shelf at my local library, so the horror books, are just integrated within general fiction. But because Liverpool Library has a horror shelf, I've been browsing that one quite a lot, because I've been quite getting into horror the last couple of years. So the first one that I picked up is The House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson. So this was first published in the early 1900s, I think. I've never heard of it before. So 1908. And I think, I don't know if it's maybe a little bit of cosmic horror, I don't know. In a chasm where a house once stood in an isolated corner of Ireland, a manuscript is discovered entitled The House on the Borderland. Penned by the enigmatic recluse, and it's recluse with a capital R, it tells of a revelatory descent into the uncanny, for the recluse seems to have discovered another land and in it another house. Apparently this author influenced writers including H.P. Lovecraft and Terry Pratchett. So yes, this sounds weird. I am looking forward to it. I also picked up The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. I haven't read any Christina Henry before, but she's quite a well-known horror writer. How much has she written? Yeah, she's written quite a lot. I think this is her latest release that I think came out maybe last year. So this is about single mom, Harry Adams, who has always loved horror movies. So when she's offered a job cleaning for a horror director, she leaps at the chance. The mansion is filled from top to bottom with terrifying props and costumes, as well as glittering awards from his decades-long career. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then she starts hearing noises from behind a locked door. Noises that sound remarkably like a human voice calling for help. Although Javier lives alone and never has visitors. So yeah, I do quite like a haunted house. I don't know if that's what it is, but you know what I mean. A haunted housey type novel. And then this book has to get the award for the best title of any of these books. This is Board Game Werewolf by Tony Santorella. So I've seen this one in the shops and picked it up and sort of been interested but not quite bought it. This is about Brian, an aimless slacker in his 20s, who's been struggling to manage his transition to adulthood almost as much as his monthly transitions to a werewolf. It says it's about finding your path, the power of friendship, and learning how to be comfortable in your own shaggy werewolf pelt. So I'm hoping for a bit of comedy and queerness, and yeah, looking forward to that one. So those are the books that I got out of Liverpool Library. Then I work for a university, so there is a library on campus, and the other day when I got to work in the morning I was really fed up for a variety of reasons that I won't bore you with, and I was in early, so I decided to go and look in the library because that always makes me feel better. And I came away with 8 books. Of course I did. Some of these I've heard of before and want to read. Some of them I have never heard of before, but I just thought sounded interesting. The first is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. So very recently I read Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by the same author. Really, really enjoyed this one. I'll talk about this one in an upcoming wrap up. So this is the first book in the series. The one that I've read is the third book. I didn't know at the time of getting that one at the library it was the third book. So the books follow like a group of friends, but each one centres a different character. So it's about them and their relationships and stuff like that. So from having read the third one first, I think I know like who's going to end up with who, but that doesn't really matter because it's not like a murder mystery like a whodunit, do you know what I mean? And with these books usually it's fairly obvious who's going to end up with who, but if I had known I probably would have started with the first one first. So anyway, so this is about Delilah Green, who swore she would never go back to Bright Falls where she grew up. Her life is now in New York. When Delilah's estranged stepsister pressurises her into photographing her wedding, Delilah finds herself back in Bright Falls once more. And then she sees Claire Sutherland, her stepsister's stuck-up bestie, and decides maybe there's some fun to be had after all. So I wonder what could happen. But I really enjoyed the other book I read by this author. It was full of queerness, it was funny, there was some like serious topics in there as well. It was just really, it was a really great sort of comforting read. So looking forward to that. Next is a book I haven't heard of before. This is Face by Benjamin Zephaniah. Obviously I've heard of Benjamin Zephaniah, who was most famous as a poet but wrote novels as well. I think this was his first novel, which was first published in 1999. It's pretty short and the font's pretty big, so it's probably going to be quite a quick read. So this is about Martin, who thinks he has his life sorted. He's good looking, funny, and the undisputed leader of the gang of 3 until one night he accepts a ride home in a stolen car and the police give chase. What happens next will change Martin inside and out. So I am looking forward to reading something by Benjamin Zephaniah. Next is a book that I have heard of and just been on my radar as one I would quite like to read, and it's Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. So this is about a woman who is with her husband and her child, and she starts to change in some way. New appetites, new instincts, and from deep within herself, a new voice. So I think she changes into is it a dog? A dog, or is it a werewolf? Something like that. Next is a book I've never heard of before, but I like the cover and it just sounded like I might like to give it a go. This is The Company by J.M. Varese. It's described as being a stylish gothic thriller, so I was like, yes please. And it's quite short as well, which is I think unusual for like historical fiction. Anyway, it's set in London in 1870. Lucy Braithwaite lives a privileged existence as heir to a fortune. The most successful purveyor of English luxury wallpapers the world over. I guess that's what this is. This is actually, this cover is weirdly similar to our curtains in the living room. Anyway, maybe that's why I was drawn to it. Many have wondered if the spell-like effect of Braithwaite's brilliant patterns is due simply to artistry or something more sinister. So yeah, someone dies, there's an inheritance, weird stuff's happening, I don't know. A deliciously disquieting novel. Sounds good. One that I have not heard of before and I was just drawn to is My Bones and My Flute. And the subtitle is A Ghost Story in the Old-Fashioned Manner, and it's by Edgar Mittelholzer. It's in the Caribbean Modern Classics range. So this was first published in 1955. So let's see. Amongst the barks of baboons and rustles of hidden creatures, a group of town dwellers confront the reality of evil and their own fallibilities in the remote forests of Guyana. Though there is more than a hint of tongue-in-cheek in this thoroughly entertaining work, it rises to a pitch of genuine terror and has serious things to say about the need to exercise the crimes of slavery and individual wickedness that still echo into the present. So it sounds really good. Annoyingly, the library have stuck this stupid thing on the back of the blurb, so I can't read it all. It's annoying, but it sounds good, doesn't it? Next, okay, I was so excited to see this book in the library because this is a book that I've picked up in the bookshop a couple of times and been really tempted to buy. I've only heard good things about this book. Everyone who reads it raves about it, but it's really not my usual genre. But the stuff about it that makes me think I could really love it. So that's why I've never bought it. So I was so excited to see it in the library. And it's Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. So this is, the little strapline here is that lesbian necromancers explore a haunted Gothic palace in space. So I don't really read fantasy. Like, there's been some novels I've enjoyed that have some fantastical type elements, but it's just not a genre I've ever really got into or been drawn to, I suppose. So I am a little nervous about this one. It's pretty long. It's just under 500 pages. This is the first in a trilogy. What does it say? It unveils a solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. A heart-pounding epic science fantasy. So I've just heard amazing stuff about this book on this series. It's a trilogy, I think. So I'm excited to give that one a go. Just a couple more left now. Next is Lucky Day by Beth Morrey. I think this is a relatively new release. Let's see, yeah, in 2024. And this is one that I had seen on my library website. And I've been drawn to the cover, so I'd had to read what it was about, and I thought it sounded interesting, but not enough for me to order it from my library. But when I went into the library at work, this one was like displayed right at the front. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to get it out of the library then. It's fate, clearly. This one, it sounds good. So after a morning that starts with a terrible migraine, an accidentally strong concoction of painkillers and a bump on the head, Clover Henry is not quite herself. She walks out of work at 9:47 a.m. and for once she isn't worrying about everything. She's taking some much deserved me time and everyone else had better get out of her way. So it's about her doing, for one day, just exactly what she wants to do. I think it's meant to be quite funny. I've not actually heard anyone talk about it, but it sounds really good, and I do like that cover. And then the final book out of all of these is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. DNF'd a Grady Hendrix before the Final Girls support group. I'm not sure how much of that was a few years ago, so how much of that was maybe that I wasn't in the mood for it at the time, potentially. I think this is his latest book, and I said I do like a haunted house book. So this is about Louise, who goes home after her parents have died. She doesn't want to deal with the family home, stuffed to the rafters with the remnants of her father's academic career and her mother's lifelong obsession with puppets and dolls. Dolls and puppets are pretty creepy, aren't they? Blah blah blah. So yeah, some houses don't want to be sold and their home has other plans for both of them. So yeah, I like a haunted house story, so we shall see how we get on with that. I think I've heard good things about this one. The library did also have My Best Friend's Exorcism by this author. which I may be interested in as well. It's got a great front cover, that one. But I thought I would give this one a go first. So that is a lot of books. A ridiculous amount of books. I don't know where they're going. There's just piles of books everywhere in this house at the moment. So yeah, I need to sort that out. Let me know if you've read any of these and if there are any that you think I should prioritise, because I think I need some help with this. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye.